But first tonight, I'm sure you've heard all the cautions. Don't eat meat, don't use a gas stove, limit your travel. I mean, they're just some of the advice that we've been receiving about how to save the planet. Now, those warnings come from people like US climate envoy John Kerry and troubled teen Greta Thunberg. And every year, they and their fellow catastrophists get together in Davos, Switzerland, for a gathering of the climate congregation. Now, it's an important meeting for the piously observant climatistas. So important, they need to take private jets and pop champagne while gorging on fillet steak, which is undoubtedly cooked on gas stoves. Now, some may say that's a tad hypocritical, particularly when the science shows that private jet emissions quadrupled during Davos last year. That was as a result of the 1,040 elite personal transporters flying these illustrious guests in and out. Well, let me assure you that those attending this globalist gabfest really do think they're special. Here's the aristocratically thin John Kerry sharing his thoughts on this elite group of Davos dynamos.
And when you stop and think about it, it's pretty extraordinary that we, select group of human beings, because of whatever touched us at some point in our lives, are able to sit in a room and come together and actually talk about saving the planet. I mean, it's so almost extraterrestrial to think about, quote, saving the planet. And if you said that to most people, they think you're just a crazy tree-hugging, lefty, liberal, do-gooder, whatever, and there's no relationship. But really, that's where we are.
All right, I'm going to admit it, I find it pretty extraordinary too. And whatever apparently touched John Kerry and his cabal of climate crazies, well, it better keep its filthy Marxist hands away from me. And yes, I do think they're all crazy tree-hugging lefty liberals, but admittedly, the jury is still out on the extraterrestrial claim. But I'm absolutely positive they are not do-gooders. There's no way. These people are actually do-badders. Hypocrites of the highest order. Their agenda is to enslave you, to deny you the freedoms they demand for themselves. They want to tell you what you can do, where you can do it, and who you can do it with. I mean, why else would they be at a conference established by Klaus Schwab and his globalist World Economic Forum? Now, here's the man himself. At least I presume he's a man and not one of John Kerry's alien influences. And he's opening the conference with the stated goal of mastering the future.
What does it need to master the future? I think to have a platform where all stakeholders of global society are engaged. Governments, business, civil societies, the young generation.
Now, you may well ask, what is this future that Uberführer Schwab and his followers have actually planned for us? Well, we know they want you to own nothing and just rent everything, but of course they won't tell you who you'll actually be renting the things from, because then that would give the game away, you see. They want big business, they want big government, and they want billionaires to own everything so they can profit by renting it to you. And they also want you to eat bugs and not travel more than 15 minutes from your home. Doubt me? Here's a Swiss Green MP, which sounds a bit more like a cheese, doesn't it? At Davos, planning your future for you.
Changing the way districts work. For instance, in Zurich, we have a lot of districts where you actually don't need a car because all the activities, school, buying something, everything you can do in walking distance, And by doing that, people don't buy a car. And it's not felt like actually they would like to have a car and they are not allowed to have it, but they simply don't need it.
Beautiful, isn't it? You're confined to your district, so you won't need a car. But the billionaire carpetbaggers, they'll all need their Gulfstreams to chase the endless summer. Actually, come to think about it, won't we all have an endless summer thanks to global warming? Apparently not, because you see, global warming is so yesterday. It's climate change now, and that explains why we're expecting more rain, sun, snow, sleet, hail and wind, as well as less rain, sun, snow, sleet, hail and wind. It's the perfect all-rounder, the go-to solution that helps these people explain every single circumstance. But I regret to tell you, not every Davos guest has got that message yet. Here is the Colombian president claiming capitalism is driving global warming and anarchy, of course, and how capitalism must be overcome so we can live on the planet.
And it's something that is not often mentioned, capitalism. Can the capitalism that we have known in the last 30, 40 years overcome the climate crisis that the capitalism helped create? It's a rhetorical question, but it also makes sense, because if the answer is no, then we're wasting our time.
Now, you may not have noticed, but I will point it out that on stage with this wealthy president is the bloated billionaire Al Gore and Australia's very own Andrew Forrest. Now, for the record, I'm unsure if Mr. Forrest was accompanied by a Chinese spy on this particular public presentation, but we'll keep digging into it. And there was also this lady in a rather peculiar hat, which may or may not be made completely of tin foil.
We have a deeply wounded spirit as a people that is in desperate need of healing and restoration. And we must look to our Almighty Creator to find our proper place in humanity.
She might actually be onto something. Or should that be, she might be on something. In any event, the climate crisis is a spiritual one for the worshippers of Gaia. Now, according to iFly Commercial exclusively, billionaire John Kerry, over 50% of the Earth's species have already been wiped out.
You look at what's happening with species. Half the species of the planet have been already killed.
Okay, even the ABC fact-checkers couldn't let that go through because it's not quite true. It's not even close, actually. But it's part of the narrative that we have a planetary and justice crisis.
Friends, scientifically, this is not a climate crisis. We are now facing something deeper. Mass extinction, air pollution, undermining ecosystem functions, really putting humanity's future at risk. This is a planetary crisis.
This is a safety crisis, but above all, it is also a justice crisis.
There seems to be a crisis of truth among this mob, and I'm saying that justice will only be truly done when they're held to account for their alarmist bull dust. These constantly changing crises are all used by the WEF and the global elites to justify their tyrannical agenda. Or as they might put it, we're doing this for your own good, and the less you know about it, the better. And that's why they stifle potential critics by engaging in partnerships with them. Now, one of those partnerships happens to be with the world's largest multimedia news provider, Reuters. Now, conveniently, the partnership with Reuters introduces the exclusive hosting of video, audio, text and photo content from more than 100 live sessions at the Davos agenda, making the content then available to hundreds of global media publishers. Strangely, it reminds me of the former New Zealand Prime Minister and lefty globalist Jacinda Ardern, who claimed she wanted to be the one source of truth. Sounds a bit more like Orwell's Ministry of Truth to me. Indeed, the overall agenda seems to be one of driving people out of the real world, I guess, into living virtual lives via what they call the metaverse, or as the WEF acolytes put it, the digital global collaboration village. Now, according to Klaus Schwab, you can trust this WEF initiative because Interpol are on board.
A question to Mr. Schwab. I think the metaverse is a great tool to reinvent the way we work. But in general, my question is, in the moment we see quite a big decline in trust in political institutions and also in their representatives worldwide. And a meeting here in Davos, to what extent do you think this can strengthen to build this trust again?
One of the village partners, for example, is Interpol. So we work together already with the necessary instances to make sure that the system is as safe as it can be.
Trust us, because we've got another authority figure on side. Well, I don't know about you, but strangely, it gives me little comfort. You may also experience a similar comfort level with another of the WEF's partnerships. You see, this time they've joined forces with the pool of decadent perversion that we know as Hollywood. That stated goal is to normalise the LGBT blah 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 agenda.
Including us in all stories. So that's the other piece that I think is really important. And we've worked really closely with Hollywood on this. It's not just centering the story on us, but we're everywhere.
I always thought culture evolved naturally in society. It wasn't forced down our throats by Hollywood and a pre-planned elite. Anyway, that's not the big issue according to some of the Davos big hitters. You see, there's probably not that much money in that market. The big cash is still betting on climate. Here's the billionaire bloviator himself, Al Gore, in a completely regular conversation about boiling oceans, rain bombs, and 1 billion or so refugees.
And all the greenhouse gas pollution would be below you. We're still putting 162 million tons into it every single day. And the accumulated amount is now trapping as much extra heat as would be released by 600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on the Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs and sucking the moisture out of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level and causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century. Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion?
Now, I can assure you that was definitely not an unhinged rant by a bloke who's been ramping up the rhetoric since 2006. I remember when he told us back then that the earthly point of no return on global warming was in just 10 years. The last time I checked the calendar, it was 2023, and that tells me that, Al Gore, your time was up long ago. But instead, we've still got him, and we've also got a new bunch of assorted crusaders chasing the filthy lucre of crony capitalism. And they're all trying to do a deal in Davos. By hook or by crook, they'll want to get their way, and they simply do not care what that means for your liberty, your well-being, or your household budget. Davos is the destination of those who despise us.